Ed Lieu, Carol Lieu, Lowenthal, Negrete McLeod, Padilla, Pavley, Price, Rubio, Runner, Semidian, Steinberg, Strickland, Vargas, Walters, Wolk, Wright, Wyland, Yee.
Will the members and our guests beyond the rail and in the gallery please rise? We will be led in prayer this afternoon by our guest chaplain, Senator Rod Wright, after which we will remain standing and will be led into prayer by Senator Emerson.
Members and guests, we are in the throes of a fiscal crisis that is challenging our collective intellect and personal resolve, and certainly as of last week, it's challenging our wallets. While we work through the policy decisions we were elected to make, I would make this request of every senator and staff member. At the end of the day, we all represent a piece of California. And while we may differ on the approach, none of what we do should be taken personally. I believe that we all truly love California and want to see it prosper. We just have dissimilar ways of getting there. Motivational speaker Dr. Dwayne Dyer raised this idea when he said, "Consider those whom you call your enemies, and then figure out what they should call you." You cannot choose sides in a round world. You are neither in it or part of it, or you are off it. When you have enemies, you are part of the very things you accuse them of. An enemy opposes your interest, your position. An enemy is hostile, unkind, and unfriendly. And what are you doing while all this is going on? If you consider them your enemy, how can they approach you to get things clear? You are in the middle of what stands between you and your enemy. It is not what they have done or said, can do or might do. It is you, it is your thought, your judgments, your fear, condemnation. And if you did not feel guilty, you could not attack those you call your enemy. You believe the enemy is wrong, not to be trusted, unworthy of love, and you prepare yourself for defense, projecting onto the enemy the very things you do yourself. When you have an enemy, look at your own hatred, understanding, and the hostility that disturbs you, and ask yourself, do I really want to attack the thing I fear? In the New Testament book of Mark, Jesus was talking to the disciples when John said to him, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to prevent him because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not hinder him, for there is no one who will perform a miracle in my name and be able to soon afterward speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is for us." I pray today that we deliberate and we remember that we are not against one another, that we all love California and truly want to see it prosper. There are no enemies here, only servants trying to serve. May this be God's will. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, members, at this time the regular session will stand in recess and the first extraordinary session will be convened. The prayer and pledge will be deemed complete. Senator DeSaulnier, are you ready to take up item number 3? Secretary, please call. Please read.
Assembly Bill 15 by Assembly Member Hill, enacting to taxation and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Thank you, Mr. President. AB 15 by Assembly Member Hill is a special session measure that clarifies the legislature's intent regarding the current exclusion from property tax assessment for purchases of new active solar energy systems that are sold using financial transactions such as sale-leaseback arrangements or partnership flip structures. Even though these financing arrangements on solar energy systems have been utilizing this property tax exclusion for years under existing law, a property tax staff member of the state's tax agency has argued that there may be some ambiguity in the law and should be clarified. This legislation does that. I would ask for your aye vote.
Discussion or debate? Senator DeSaulnier, you may close.
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, call the roll. Members, this is a 27-vote measure. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist, aye. Anderson, Berryhill, Blakesley, Calderon, Cannella, Corbett, aye. Correa, aye. De Leon, DeSaulnier, aye. Dutton, aye. Emerson, aye. Evans, Fuller, aye. Gaines, Hancock, Harmon, aye. Hernandez, Huff, aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa, aye. Leno, aye. Ted Lieu, Carol Lieu, Lowenthal, aye. Negrete McLeod, aye. Padilla, aye. Pavley, aye. Price,
Aye.
aye. Rubio, aye. Runner, Smidian, Steinberg, aye. Strickland, aye. Vargas, aye. Walters, aye. Wolk, aye. Wright, aye. Wyland, aye. Yee.
Call the absentees.
Anderson, Berryhill, aye. Blakesley, aye. Calderon, aye. Cannella, aye. De Leon, aye. Evans, Gaines, aye. Hancock, Hernandez, Ted Lieu, Carol Lieu, Runner, Smidian, Yee.
Ayes 31, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 31, no 0 on the measure. Measure is passed. Senator DeSaulnier,
Transmittal to the Assembly, I would appreciate it.
immediate transmittal is granted. Okay. At this time, the first extraordinary session will stand in recess, and the regular session will be reconvened. Members, we'll go back to privileges of the floor. Seeing none, messages from the governor will be deemed read. Messages from the Assembly will be deemed read. Reports of committees will be deemed read, and amendments adopted. Motions, resolutions, and notices. Without objection, Joint Rule 62A will be suspended to allow the Select Committee on Workforce Development, School Environment, and Student Wellness to meet on June the 30th with 4 days' notice in the daily file. Okay. Without objection, that will be granted. Senator Emerson, what purposes do you rise?
Yeah. Under motions and resolutions,
Proceed.
Mr. President, at the request of the author, I'd like to remove AB 309, file item 93, to the inactive file. Thank you.
Without objection, so granted. Okay, members, we'll move to consideration of the daily file. Second reading. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Bill 1426, 469 with amendments, 973 with amendments, 720 with amendments, 810 with amendments, 1023, and 943 with amendments.
Okay. Unfinished business, items 12 through 16. Item 12, Senator DeSaulnier. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 373 by Senator DeSaulnier, enacting to county employees' retirement.
Mr. President, this bill eliminates the sunset from a previous bill by then Senator Torlakson. It's a district bill that allowed public safety to have a second tier. This was allowed for during negotiations between the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors and their public safety representatives and the Deputy Sheriff's Association. The only reason it's back here on concurrence is to add some co-authors. I would ask for your aye vote.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Senator, you may close.
I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price.
Aye.
Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Anderson, aye. Berryhill, aye.
Ayes 37, no 0. The assembly amendments are concurred with. It's a real mouthful. Item 13, Senator DeSaulnier. Okay. Item 14, Senator Lieu. Secretary, please read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 44 by Senator Lieu relative to Foster Care Month.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SCR 44 declares the month of May 2011 as Foster Care Month. I apologize for it being a little late. The bill is back for concurrence because of technical amendments made in the Assembly. California currently has 60,000 children in foster care. In recognition of the importance of California's continuing to strive for the well-being of our foster children, I ask for your support on this resolution.
Any debate or discussion? Any objection using the previous unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 38, no 0. The ayes 37, no 0. The Senate amendments are resolution is some amendments are concurred. Item 15, Senator Calderon. Item 16, Senator Correa. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 150 by Senator Correa, an act relating to common interest developments.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senators. The amendments are simply double joining. This bill has received 0 no votes. Ask for your votes and concurrence.
Any debate or discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Berryhill. Blakesley. Berryhill, aye. Blakesley, aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Price.
Aye.
Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Pavley, aye.
All the absent members.
Anderson. Aye. Evans. Runner. Yee.
Ayes 37, no 0. The amendments are concurred with. Okay. Item Assembly third reading, members. Any items? Assembly third reading? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. Item 86. Secretary, please read the consent calendar.
Assembly Bill 1391, 1392, 222. Special consent calendar, Assembly Bill 454, 1305, 741, 23, 426, 12, 332, 886, 1281, 588, 1222, and 349.
Right. Okay, consent calendar. Any objection to using the previous unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 37, noes 0. The consent calendar is passed. Senator Padilla, for the purpose of your ayes.
Request to take up item 22, I believe. It's SJR 7.
Secretary, please read.
Senate Joint Resolution 7 by Senator Padilla relative to large capacity ammunition magazines.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, the resolution before us would affirm that the state of California supports both H.R. 308 and Senate Resolution 32 in the United States Congress, both labeled the Large Capacity Ammunition Feeding Device Act. As many of you know, both across the country, and California is no exception, the public has become all too familiar with mass homicides, mass shootings, and large capacity gun clips have been used in many of these mass shootings. Most recently with the incident in Arizona that claimed the life of a 9-year-old girl and a federal judge and injuring 19 others, including U.S. Representative Gabrielle Giffords. I believe it's consistent with California legislative history and leadership to take this position on federal legislation. In 1989, the state of California established its own assault weapons ban with the adoption of the Roberti-Roos legislation. In 1994, we saw enacted at the federal level a federal assault weapons ban, which included a limitation on large capacity magazines. Unfortunately, in the year 2004, the assault weapons ban as a whole, including the large capacity magazine elements of it, sunsetted and was not extended or reauthorized. In 2000, the year 2000, California adopted a bill by Senator Parada instituting a large capacity magazine ban within the state of California. And I'm proud to say that since then, there have been no mass shootings, no mass murders of this type in our state. So the evidence speaks for itself. Strong public policy has saved lives. We continue to have the ban in place in the state, but are vulnerable to the importation unlawfully of these large capacity magazine clips, and believe federal policy and a national standard would serve Californians and our country well. I ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Senator Amalpa.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this bill. This is not going to do anything to solve crime in California, the federal ban or a statewide ban. It's merely something you see more on movies and on TV with high capacity. It's indeed, bans in the past haven't really done much. You can still get a 10-round capacity for your semi-automatic handgun. The difference between 10 or 15 rounds isn't that much that we need to limit people's choices or opportunities to be able to defend their homes. So we do more on the crime prevention side of things and the crime enforcement side of things, yet the priorities of this legislature are to have release up to 33,000 prisoners because we don't get our act together on building the prison space that's needed and properly utilizing the space we already have. So moving in this direction by making less criminals, but actually those that are following the law have less choices to defend themselves is the extreme wrong direction. I ask for your no vote.
Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Mr. President. As well as members, I just want to rise to commend my colleague, Senator Padilla, for his leadership on this issue. It is a very important issue. Obviously, high-powered assault weapons, I believe, have no business in our community, especially those with the capacity to receive a magazine clip. This differentiates from those who are law-abiding citizens, who are bona fide hunters, who take the time to go through the legal process, go out there and enjoy sport, or go out, whether it's in the wilderness or go into a confined facility where you're able to shoot in a manner that's safe. So there is a major difference. So I want to just commend Senator Padilla and also urge our colleagues to support this measure.
Any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Senator Padilla, you may close.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the words of support by Senator De Leon. Respectfully disagree with Senator LaMalfa. As I mentioned in the presentation, I think the evidence is pretty clear. Since California has had its own ban on large capacity magazines, there have been no mass shootings like we've seen in Virginia Tech, like we've seen in Arizona, like we've seen in so many other places, and like we saw here in our own state prior to its ban. I do believe that lack of a federal, national ban, we do remain a little, more than a little, vulnerable. But let me be clear, a vote for the resolution today is not a vote for prohibiting any particular weapon, and it's not a vote for banning a particular type of ammunition. It's specifically the large capacity magazine clips that are not necessary for hunting, that are not necessary for protecting your home. I ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. No. Blakesley. Calderon. Canella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. No. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. No. Evans. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. No. Runner. Semidian. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Semidian, aye.
Absentees.
Blakesley. Calderon. Evans. Runner. Yee. Calderon, aye.
Ayes 21, noes 15. The resolution is adopted. We're returning to motions and resolutions. Senator Gaines. I'm sorry, Senator Padilla.
Well, at the appropriate time, I wanted to request to take up item 29, but I can wait a minute.
All right, thank you. Without objection. Senator Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I did want to take this opportunity for an adjourn in memory. And this is to adjourn in memory of Crystal Rodriguez. And I just ask that your thoughts and prayers would be with her family and her husband, Victor. This young couple were celebrating their honeymoon when a tragic accident took place and took Crystal's life, and it's left Victor struggling to survive. Life is so precious, and suffering a loss at this time during a honeymoon, it's just really hard to contemplate and understand why things like this happen. So I just ask that that your thoughts and prayers would be with the family. And they were a great couple. They attended my church and just had a great spirit and were very warm and very charitable. And so would just ask for your prayers for Victor, who may not survive, and for his newly wedded wife who has passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gaines. Our prayers are with the family and friends. Senator Dusanier.
Yes, Mr. President, under motions and resolutions, I rise to request that item 37, AB 481 by Assemblymember Gordon be moved to the inactive file at the request of the author.
Without objection. Senator Kehoe, what purpose do you rise?
For an adjournment in memory, Mr. President.
You may.
All right. Thank you. Members, if I could have your attention briefly, it's with sadness that I bring to your attention the fact that Jean Harris, a longtime lesbian political activist, passed away on Saturday at her condo in Palm Springs. Jean was in this chambers and in this chamber, and in the Capitol many times. In addition to decades of activism for women's rights, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender civil rights, she was a strong and stalwart Democratic Party activist. She worked for the Speaker's Office of Member Services. She worked in Los Angeles for the Pro Tem and the Senate, and she worked for our legislative lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender caucus. She was truly a tireless fighter for those causes in which she believed. She spent many years in service to her home city of San Francisco, Chief of Staff to Supervisor Harry Britt, Deputy Mayor of San Francisco from 91 to 93, Political Director for Dr. Sandra Hernandez, the Deputy of Health in San Francisco. She was Executive Director for Basic Rights Oregon, setting up a statewide LGBT organization that became a model for other organizations around the country. She also was the Executive Director of California Alliance for Pride and Equality, which grew into Equality California. She gave so much to our state. Many Californians' lives are better because of the work and the contributions she made to California. And I am sharing this adjournment in memory with Senator Leno, but I ask for you to remember her. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kehoe. And if you'll bring the name to the desk, we'll make certain that she is properly memorialized. Senator Leno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Kehoe did an admirable job in sharing with us all the nature of the profound work that Jean Harris did for literally decades. I first knew her when she worked for Supervisor Harry Britt, who had been then Mayor Dianne Feinstein's appointment to the County Board of Supervisors after the assassination of Harvey Milk. So Jean was there in those early years of local political gay activism, but also in addressing the early needs of those who were touched by the HIV/AIDS epidemic back in the early 80s and through the entire decade when the city was really shell-shocked by the enormity of the epidemic. Jean was there. Jean was always there, not only leading the cause, but also holding the hands of those who were so devastated and touched by the power of the epidemic. So I do ask you to join Senator Kehoe and me in remembering her very accomplished life and offering condolences to her family at this time.
Thank you, Senator Leno. Senator Lowenthal, recognized. For which purpose?
I, too, want to add my voice. I was shocked, stunned to hear about the passing of Jean Harris. Jean, you've heard of her great accomplishments for the LGBT community. I just mourn the loss of a good friend. Jean spent a lot of time in Long Beach. That was her kind of her second home. She worked out of my office. She was my appointee to the Democratic Party, to the Central Committee, also to the Democratic Convention. She would always call me about issues. Whenever she was in town, she would call and stop by. She was, besides a great activist, she was a great human being, and I will miss her a lot. And I'm still, it just seems like the wrong thing and too sudden, and I'm really saddened by it. And it's just very, very sad day.
Senator Padilla. pass. Any other items, members? If there's no other business, Senator Steinberg, the desk is clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There will be a Democratic caucus immediately following session this afternoon. Session will be upon my call beginning tomorrow morning. Make announcement as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Members, a reminder, Senate BNP will meet in room 3191 after the Democratic caucus. We'll stand in recess until Senator McLeod.
You don't have your glasses on. PERS will meet, we're scheduled to meet at 2 o'clock. So I think we will keep it, or after caucus.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. We will stand in recess.